Well, I think the president a couple of months ago would have hoped to go into the UNGA and get a lot of positive feedback just for not being Donald Trump. Remember, for the last 4 years, every year the president of the United States has gone to this great gathering of international leaders and essentially criticized the organization. He has sort of rejected the whole idea of internationalism. But it's a little late for Biden to play that "I'm not Donald Trump" card. The two big events that have taken place in the past month going into the UNGA, the American withdrawal from Afghanistan, and the recent kerfuffle with France over the sale of submarines to Australia, both of them send, if you like, the wrong signal. It signals that America is still going it alone. It does not always consult its allies, and that the president may have changed, but the America first attitude in the White House has not changed a great deal. Biden will try to fix that, I think, by talking about the great international challenges of dealing with COVID, of dealing with climate change. But I think there will be a lot of skepticism in the room as he goes in to make his first big speech as president of the United States to the United Nations.
So how does he split his time then between, showing that there is an America First policy, but also showing that, America is there to be an ally to some of these nations? I mean, how does he please all of these world leaders who are, very publicly pretty frustrated at some of the decisions that you just outlined?
Yes. Well, now, understand that all American presidents have been cautious about the United Nations. In theory, American presidents in the past have appreciated having the United Nations, but they've always reserved the right to pursue American foreign policy interests in an America First mode. So in that sense, Biden is not a big departure from, let's say, Obama or even Clinton, the previous Democratic presidents. But I think there are two massive international challenges that I think everybody, including this administration, acknowledges cannot be done in the America First way, which is the challenge of climate change and the challenge of dealing with the COVID pandemic. Now, Biden is signaling that he wants to show America's leadership in these areas. Over the weekend, he had this outreach to the international community, this new challenge that he's put forward before the world in conjunction with the United Nations, with the Europeans, with the European Union, to reduce methane, the release of methane into the atmosphere by 30% in a 10-year period. Now, that's a big international challenge that the United States wants to lead. Tomorrow, on Wednesday, he's going to hold a virtual meeting on the sidelines of the United Nations to discuss trying to get 70% of the whole world vaccinated by September next year. That's another big international challenge. And then again, the United States is showing that it wants to lead. Now, whether that will suffice is hard to tell. After all, you have the complications now of, in the case of the vaccination program, the U.S. plan for booster shots. If that plan goes through, then the United States will be consuming much more of the vaccine itself. Other countries around the world will then be probably inspired to do similar things in their own countries. But the developed countries, the richer countries, will probably follow the American example, which means that the poorer countries, the developing countries around the world, will have to wait even longer to get their first doses of the vaccine, never mind the second, and far away from the boosters. So there are challenges for Biden as he tries to show the world, in his words, that America is back.
And Bobby, then, I mean, you also mentioned a lot of the other meetings that are going to be happening. Biden will potentially be meeting or speaking with President Macron, possibly speaking with other leaders. What does his messaging need to be when it comes to France, a longtime ally of the U.S.? What does he need to say to smooth over what's really been a tough past few days?
Well, the administration has been sending out contrary messages. On the one hand, some in the White House are saying that Biden wants to put out that fire. He wants to reassure France, and he wants to reassure Macron that the United States remains a key ally and regards France its oldest ally, as a key partner in international affairs. On the other hand, there are others in the administration who are briefing journalists and saying, really, this was not in this business with the Australians. It was up to the Australians to tell the French that they were changing their minds about the submarines. The United States did not have that responsibility. So it's not clear that the Biden administration is accepting even that it has some culpability in the way this whole thing has been handled. So I don't expect that he will apologize to Macron if that phone call, and they're meant to have a phone call, if that phone call goes through. But at least he'll try to mollify the French president and at least get things back to a point where ambassadors can come back to Washington and resume the daily grind of diplomatic engagement on the two sides. Macron will not easily be mollified, I suspect. He will expect some gesture from the American president to, if you like, compensate for the indignity that France has had to go through. Whether Biden's willing to do that or not is hard to tell.
Absolutely. A lot to pay attention to when he speaks in just a little bit. Bloomberg Opinions, Bobby Ghosh in London for us. Thank you so much for starting us off.